Howard Beck. How you doing, sir?
Doing great. How about you?
Good. Welcome to H2G Radio's Ricky Rivers, man. I'm glad you're able to kind of get on the line with us. We just had Jared Dudley on here, talk with him about the Phoenix Suns and his thoughts about the lockout and getting ready for what I like to call Black Friday on December 9th. And I'm sure you're getting ready to kind of get the scoop and get all the behind-the-scenes info for your New York Knicks there.
Yeah, I think everybody's, pretty much long past ready to get this thing going again. So, players are trickling in right now to, these voluntary workouts, but it's not really training camp yet. It's not the real deal. And I think everyone's just kind of looking forward to the idea that next week, the schedule will come out, the labor agreement will be ratified by the owners and players, camps will open, it'll start to feel, more or less like a normal season, just a little bit late.
Howard, this is incomplete. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think the first thing is the Knicks will probably try to do or should do to start off the season with the roster?
It's interesting because the Knicks have the same holes right now, the same needs as they did when the season ended, which seems like a really long time ago. But, they need an upgraded center. Ronny Turiaf's best as a backup, and he's frequently injured. I really feel that they could use an upgraded shooting guard. Landry Field's a nice player, but he's still young, and I think he's probably best suited as a sixth man. They don't really have a true backup point, and Chauncey Billups is 35 years old. So, you know what Carmelo's going to give you, you know what Amari's going to give you, but this team needs rebounding and defense and depth, and, they just weren't ready to deal with a team like Boston, I think, even if the Knicks had been at full strength and full health. So all that said, there's only so much you can do in free agency right now, and what's happening is the Knicks aren't really being that aggressive. They've talked to a bunch of guys. They're looking for upgrades at a bunch of spots, but they're only offering one-year deals. And the reason is they're trying to keep up in their cap space for 2012, which is kind of a curious approach because, in the past they were trying to keep open cap space for 2010 when they didn't have any stars on the roster and really needed upgrades. And, they've since gotten Amari and Carmelo. So, one way to look at this would be spend everything you've got now. Surround these guys with the best pieces you can get. Caron Butler's out there. You can make a run at maybe Samuel Dallenberg. Some of the other big men, you can't get Nene or Marc Gasol probably because those guys are going to get more than an average salary. But, they've got some room to go after some guys. And they're not going for more than a one-year deal, which is going to leave a lot of guys, going elsewhere. So the point here being they're trying to keep open cap space for next summer. They're waiting it out again. And that's because Chris Paul, Darren Williams, Dwight Howard could all be free agents next summer, but along with a bunch of other guys. So it's kind of a strange position they're in, where on the one hand, they've got two of the best players in the game. They look like they're a couple pieces away from contending, but they're not trying to do those moves now, make those moves now because they've got, their sights set higher. And of course, there's also the possibility of to trade for guys, but as we can get into, the Knicks don't really have a whole lot of assets to trade, and I think it's going to be very difficult for them to get Chris Paul in a trade.
You think so?
Now, me, I would think, Chris Paul, everyone talks about Chris Paul, but I would rather have the Knicks pursue Dwight Howard more than Chris Paul. I think we need a defensive center. And Chris, obviously Dwight is the best one out there in the league. What do you think?
Either one of those things is going to make you a better team. You get one of the best point guards in the game. You get the best defensive center in the game. Either one of those things is a major upgrade for you. I think I would lean toward a point guard only in the sense that you've got Amari Stoudemire. He's certainly one of the best scoring bigs in the game. He doesn't rebound the way Dwight does, and he certainly doesn't block shots the way Dwight does. But if you just got a solid defensive center next to Amari, and again, if they weren't taking themselves out of the running, I don't know if they could go get Tyson Chandler. I don't think they can afford to compete.
That's what I was going to say,
for the dollars that he'll get. But he's the ideal. That's who I want next to Amari. I don't know if you want another guy who, Dwight's not known as a scorer, but he does score. So are he and Amari compatible? And they both like operating a low block. Amari's got the jump shot too, so he can move out. But I don't know. You could spin this either way. Amari and Dwight would be great. Chris Paul will be great. Honestly, I don't know that they can get any of them, so I'm not even sure it's a really relevant discussion. What we've got to look at here in the long term for the Knicks, you've got Amari Stoudemire locked up to a contract that's paying him about $20 million a year. Carmelo's making about the same amount. If you look ahead even just to one summer from now, $40 million locked up in two guys. If you add another max-type player who's going to make, in the case of Chris Paul or Dwight Howard, they're going to make $17 in the starting salary unless they're willing to take a pay cut for some reason. I don't see why they would. Now you got three guys making $57 million. The cap rate now is only $58. So, and the luxury tax threshold is $70. So you've got a very tiny window there to add anybody else using exceptions, and I think they have a very hard time. Now, I know in Miami people say, well, that's how it works there. You got LeBron, you got Dwayne Wade, you got Chris Bosh, and now you can surround them with anyone. Well, they had a few other things going for them, and by the way, those guys are all two-way players. And Dwayne and LeBron are both fantastic playmakers. So just getting three guys who are qualified as stars isn't enough. You can't just pack a bunch of minimum salary guys around them and say, now you're contending for a title. Miami's a very special situation, and I don't think the Knicks can replicate that simply by taking three guys who happen to, as they say, have the name All-Star around them and say that's enough and we'll just plug in minimum guys. I just don't think that that's sustainable going forward. And under the new restrictive system that the NBA has put in, it's going to be really, really hard for them to add talent around those guys if they've got three max players.
Yeah, I agree with you, Howard. I think they need to look at some talented mid to upper guys rather than trying to pursue this three-star theory. I think they can find some pieces to kind of support the two stars that they have, and they can go a little further, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that's the balanced approach. If you had simply, as we say, a good, solid defensive center next to Amari, and you had, a better scorer at two guard with Landry Fields coming off the bench, those two moves alone improve the Knicks greatly. They just need some support around what they have. Now, looking ahead, they're going to need more than that because Chauncey Billups is 35, and eventually they're going to need a replacement at point guard. But it doesn't mean you have to get the best point guard out there. So it's, as I say, it's a curious approach they're taking.
Now, when you look at mid-level guys, there's some rumors that's going because when you start to go into December 9th about, I'm hearing we mentioned earlier, about Jamal Crawford returning to a New York Knicks uniform. What are your thoughts about that and having him return and bringing some offense, another offensive threat to that lineup?
Jamal's a great scorer. He's a great guy. Really enjoyed covering him when he was here. Jamal's going to get a better offer somewhere. I mean, even if somebody else offers him the mid-level, which is what the Knicks would offer, someone else is going to offer a multi-year deal. And as far as I can tell right now, the Knicks are not offering anybody more than 1 year. They're trying to keep that cap room open. So I just don't see it happening.
And one of the things that's bothering me, they're talking about the amnesty clause on Ronaldo Balkman. I think the Knicks should hold that amnesty clause for the next 2 years because you never know, like Amari still has weak knees. You never know what's happening a couple of years from now. I would just use that as something as a whole.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I've been meaning to write that. I've been kicking that idea around for the last few days. So, yeah, absolutely, I agree with you. If you get the rare opportunity to take a guy completely off the books, no cap hit, no tax hit, obviously you still pay him, but you probably shouldn't use it on the guy making 1.6, which is what Bachman's making. You should probably hold it back. It's good for anybody who's currently on your roster and who was already signed as of July 1st. So, yeah, I mean, personally, I think Amari's knees, the concerns that people have, I think are a little overstated. I think he's done fabulously since he came back from the surgery, and I wrote about this last year. There are a number of reasons why his microfracture is not ending the way that Allen Houston's did or Penny Hardaway's did or Chris Webber's. There are a number of reasons that I don't need to go into now, but Amari's held up pretty well. I don't think you should have to worry about it. But all that said, what if he does break down? What if the knee does go? And if you've got the amnesty there, that might just save you because if you can take a guy making $20 million off your cap, you've actually got room to go get another guy. What normally happens with these injuries, it takes a long time to get the injury release, the medical exception release from the league. And in the meantime, you don't have any cap room. Amnesty means cap room. And, on top of that, what sometimes happens, if you look at what happened with, say, Tracy McGrady or Yao Ming, those were guys who, for several years there, it wasn't quite career-ending. So the league wasn't going to give you cap relief under the medical exception because it wasn't career-ending. They could still play, but they were extremely diminished. So that's your worst-case scenario almost. If Amari could still play but just wasn't Amari anymore, then, you don't get the medical relief from the league, and now the only option would be the amnesty. So, yeah, I think better to have that in your back pocket at this point.
Definitely, but I'm more concerned about Amari's back. I think his knees have proven to be pretty good, and, you got to keep that in your back pocket. That would be silly and just, horrible for the Knicks to waste it on Balkman. Now, what do you think if they did something with Chandler and maybe you tried to go after Caron Butler, who says he's interested in the Bulls and Clippers, and then made a three-way trade for Paul? You got to bring in another team to get Paul to New York if you're going to trade him. And I believe New Orleans will probably do a trade this year. They're not going to just lose him for nothing. Do you think so?
Well, the three-way trade, look, a two-way trade is almost impossible just because the Knicks don't have anything to offer New Orleans that's compelling enough. Iman Shumpert might turn into something. He's a rookie. I think people are already overrating him just because he's athletic. Let's see the guy playing an NBA game first. Again, Fields had some nice moments last season, but I'm not even sure he's a full-time starter. Tony Douglas is a backup. Turiaf is a backup. And, Chauncey's 35 and in the last year of his deal. You just don't have anybody who on their own is compelling to a team that's about to trade one of the best players in the league. Now, the leverage the Knicks have is with Chris Paul saying something to the effect of, I will only re-sign with the Knicks. If anybody else acquires me, I'll opt out and leave them with nothing. Well, okay, but that may be real, that may be a bluff, and there are teams out there, and I guarantee you this, there were teams out there last year who were willing to take Carmelo as a rental on the possibility, on the belief that they could convince him to stay if they had him for that half season. And there will be teams that can, that will believe that they could get Chris Paul to stay. Now, they might not be willing to offer the Hornets as much.
Now, what would you say, what your prediction for the Knicks, how far do you think they can make the playoffs?
Yeah, well, and that's a great question. I've been trying to kick this one around for a couple of weeks now here as we've been leading in. Let's see what they do with free agency because it's hard to evaluate when we know that the roster is not complete yet. But if all they do is bring back, Jared Jeffries and Sean Williams and it's pretty much the same crew, I don't know that they're much more than a couple games over 500 again. In a normal season, in an 82-game season, this roster strikes me as a 45, 46-win team. In a 66-game season, maybe they're 36, 37 wins. I still don't see them at that elite level. They're a few pieces away. But let's see what they pick up in free agency. They may surprise us.
If they win 36 games, is Mike D'Antoni's, could this be Mike D'Antoni's last season?
I think in a lot of, almost anything short of getting to the second round is probably going to be bad news for him at this point. But again,
it's time to go in another direction.
Let's see what happens because Mike D'Antoni hasn't had a full training camp with this team. He hasn't a full season, or for that matter, with any team. He's had nothing but roster churn for the last few years. So, let's see what he does to adapt to the personnel that he has now, starting with the training camp. And but yeah, I think expectations are obviously very high once you've got Carmelo and Amari together, and we'll see what else they do. But I do think that expectations, in the front office are going to be that this team should, win a lot of games, get in the playoffs, make the second round at least.
Howard Beck, how you doing, sir?
Doing great. How about you?
Good. Welcome to H2G Radio's Ricky Rivers, man. I'm glad you're able to kind of get on the line with us. We just had Jared Dudley on here, talk with him about the Phoenix Suns and his thoughts about the lockout and getting ready for
again. So players are trickling in right now to these voluntary workouts, but it's still it's not really training camp yet. It's not the real deal, and I think everyone's just kind of looking forward to the idea that next week, the schedule will come out, the labor agreement will be ratified by the owners and players.
What I like to call Black Friday on December 9th. And I'm sure you're getting ready to kind of get the scoop and get all the behind-the-scenes info for your New York Knicks there.
Yeah, I think everybody's, pretty much long past ready to get this thing going. Camps will open. It'll start to feel, more or less like a normal season, just a little bit late.
Howard, this is incomplete, and I wanted to ask you, what do you think the first thing is the Knicks will probably try to do or should do to start off the season with the roster?
It's interesting because the Knicks have the same holes right now, the same needs as they did when the season ended, which seems like a really long time ago. But, they need an upgraded center. Ronny Turiaf's best is a backup, and he's frequently injured.